Welcome to Books and Bites, your shortcut to big ideas. Today we're going to dive deep into Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning.
Yeah, this book, it's powerful stuff.
It's more than just a memoir of surviving the Holocaust. It's like a psychological exploration
Right.
of how to find purpose, even when faced with unimaginable suffering.
What's really fascinating is Frankl doesn't just tell his story, he analyzes it too.
Oh, interesting.
As a psychiatrist, he uses his own journey through the horrors of a concentration camp to develop his theory of logotherapy.
Okay, so the book's split into two parts, right? His time in the camps and then logotherapy. But I have to admit, it's hard to imagine finding meaning in a place like that.
Absolutely. And Frankl doesn't shy away from the brutality. He describes the psychological journey prisoners went through, starting with shock, the utter disbelief of being thrust into this horrific reality. Then comes apathy, a sort of emotional numbness.
I could see that.
Which becomes a necessary coping mechanism.
So they had to shut down their emotions to survive.
Exactly. But here's where it gets really interesting. Frankl noticed that even in this state of utter dehumanization, the prisoners who clung to some sense of meaning, a future goal, a loved one, they were more likely to endure.
It's like having something to live for, even in the darkest of places, gave them a reason to keep going.
Precisely. Frankl himself found purpose in the hope of reuniting with his wife and completing his manuscript on logotherapy.
Wow.
These became his anchors. But what's truly remarkable is that he saw this phenomenon play out in others as well. Those who found meaning, even in the smallest of things, they were more resilient, more able to withstand the daily horrors.
That's powerful. But this idea of finding meaning in suffering, it almost feels counterintuitive.
It is. And it's important to note that Frankl wasn't romanticizing suffering. He was simply observing that even in the face of unavoidable pain, we have a choice in how we respond.
So even in a concentration camp, there was a sense of agency.
Yes. The prisoners couldn't control their circumstances, but they could control their attitude. And for some, that became their source of meaning, choosing to meet the darkness with dignity, with courage, even with a small act of kindness.
It's a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit.
It really is.
That leads us to the second part of the book, right? Logotherapy. Can you tell me more about that? How did Frankl's experiences shape his approach to psychotherapy?
So logotherapy, it's born out of these incredibly challenging experiences. It makes you wonder, how does it actually work? What sets it apart from other psychological theories?
Well, you're probably familiar with Freud and his pleasure principle.
Right.
The idea that we're driven to seek pleasure and avoid pain. And then there's Adler's, the will to power.
Okay.
The drive for achievement and dominance.
Right, I remember learning about those. Frankl saw something different, though. He argued that the primary drive in humans isn't pleasure or power, but the will to meaning. We're hardwired to search for purpose. And when we can't find it, we experience what he called an existential vacuum.
Existential vacuum. That sounds pretty bleak.
It can be. It's that feeling of emptiness, like nothing really matters. And that can lead to apathy, depression, even despair. And Frankl believed that this existential vacuum is at the root of a lot of problems we see in the world today, from addiction to violence.
That's a pretty bold claim. But if meaning is the antidote, how do we actually find it? What are the practical steps?
Frankl outlines three main avenues. The first is through work and creation. This could be your job, creative hobby, anything that allows you to contribute something valuable to the world.
So it's not just about working to make a living. It's about finding work that aligns with your values, allows you to use your talents to make a difference.
Exactly. The second avenue is through love and relationships. It's about experiencing those deep, meaningful connections with others, giving and receiving love unconditionally.
The power of human connection. We all need that. But what about the third avenue? This is where it gets really interesting, right? Finding meaning in suffering.
Yes. This is probably the most challenging concept to grasp. But again, it's not about glorifying or seeking out suffering. It's about recognizing that even in unavoidable pain, even in loss and grief, we can choose our attitude. We can find meaning in how we respond, in the lessons we learn, in the way we grow through the experience.
So it's about finding a sense of purpose, even in the darkest of times.
Exactly. Frankl saw this firsthand in the camps. He witnessed incredible acts of courage, compassion, and selflessness. In the face of unimaginable suffering, he saw people choosing to retain their dignity, their humanity, even when stripped of everything else.
That's incredibly inspiring. But I have to be honest, it's hard to imagine putting that into practice in my own life. My struggles feel so small in comparison.
And that's understandable. But the principles of logotherapy can be applied to any challenge, big or small. It's about finding your unique meaning, your own why that drives you forward.
Okay, I'm starting to get it. But how do you actually do that? Are there specific techniques or exercises?
There are. Logotherapy uses a variety of methods, such as de-reflection, where you shift your focus away from your problems and towards something meaningful outside yourself. There's also Socratic dialogue, which involves asking yourself deep questions about your values and priorities.
It's just a toolbox for the soul, helping you find what truly matters.
You could say that, but it's important to remember that logotherapy isn't a quick fix. It's an ongoing journey of self-discovery and growth.
It sounds like it takes a lot of introspection and honesty. But that's what makes it so powerful, right? It's not about someone telling you what your meaning should be. It's about you figuring it out for yourself.
Precisely. And that's the beauty of Frankl's work. He provides a framework. But ultimately, it's up to each individual to discover their own unique path to meaning.
This has been incredibly eye-opening. I'm starting to see how relevant man's search for meaning is to our lives today, even decades after it was written.
Absolutely. In a world filled with distractions and superficiality, Frankl's message is more important than ever. It's a call to look inward, to find what truly matters, and to live a life that is driven by purpose, not just pleasure or achievement.
It's definitely a book that challenges you to think deeply about your own life and your own purpose.
And that's exactly what Frankl intended.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground here, but before we wrap up, curious, what's one key takeaway from Man's Search for Meaning that you think our listeners should really hold on to?
I think the most powerful takeaway is that even when faced with suffering, even when it feels like everything's been taken from you, you still have the freedom to choose your attitude. You can choose how you respond to the challenges life throws your way. That's a freedom that no one can ever take from you.
That's such a powerful reminder. It's easy to get caught up in our own problems and forget that we have the power to choose our perspective. But you're right. It's a freedom we always have, no matter what.
Exactly. And that choice, that act of choosing your attitude, can be a source of incredible strength and resilience.
This has been a truly fascinating deep dive into man's search for meaning. It makes you think about your own life, your own purpose, and the choices you make every day.
I couldn't agree more. It's a book that has the power to transform the way you see the world and your place in it.
Well, for our listeners who are now eager to explore Frankl's ideas further, we've included a link in the description where you can get your copy of Man's Search for Meaning.
It's a must-read for anyone seeking a deeper understanding of the human spirit.
And don't forget to subscribe to Books and Bites for more insightful summaries.